Well, as we continue looking at our list of 20 characteristics of people during the end times, people who we would say are so completely controlled by demonic forces, and I think that's going to be the case upon the planet Earth in the end times, that they will behave in ways that are terrifying. And that's why Paul said these are going to be terrible times. It's just going to be dangerous to be part of this world. But the 11th thing that we looked at 10 so far. And number 11 is, he said they'll be slanderous. Well, that's how the NIV translated. It's interesting because it's the word Diabolos, and that's where we get our English word, the devil. He say they will be very devilish in the way that they behave. And the word Diabolos actually means that what they do is they accuse people in order to cause a separation. In other words, they want people to be ostracized. So what Satan as the Diabolos is, he's the accuser of the brethren. He's accusing us before God day and night. He's essentially like what happened with Job, standing and saying to God, so he's one of your followers. He only follows you because of your blessings. If you don't bless him, he'll curse you. And sometimes that proves to be true. But that's the kind of way he operates. And he's basically, that's why they came up with the word slanderous, because Diabolos means is they'll go around accusing someone in order to cause them problems. Now, how does this fit into that narcissistic, sociopathic personality? Well, narcissists are really great at triangulating relationships. And what I mean by that is that if you look at three people in a relationship as A, B, and C, the narcissist always wants to be A. They want to be the center of everybody's attention. But part of the thing they can't stand is competition. And so what A will do, the narcissist will do, is they'll go to B and say, you know, I really like you and you're my favorite. I think you're one of my best friends. So much more than C, because C really isn't your friend. They say you're your friend, but they're not really your friend, and they actually have told me things about you that are so unkind and so unloving. If you only knew what they were really like, you wouldn't let them be your friend. And B suddenly goes, oh, I had no idea. And then A, the narcissist, will go to C and say, I like you a lot. You're really my best friend, and I really trust you, but you have no idea what a bad person B is. I mean, there's things I've never told you, but I feel like I have to tell you. And they begin to create, and B will go, I had no idea. And suddenly, A has complete loyalty of B, and A has complete loyalty in C, and B and C terminate their relationship or no longer have an honest relationship with each other. Those kind of people go into family settings, and you'll find that if they're in a group gathering with family members, they're just spinning the room. They'll go from person to person, always finding somebody to get everybody to agree to hate and to ostracize. And he said that's what these people are going to be like. They do everything in the world because they want themselves to always be the center of attention. They always want to be the hero in the equation. The 12th thing he says about them is that they're without self-control. And this is interesting because they seem to be so in control. They seem to always win. They always seem to be able to dominate the situation, yet they always invariably overplay their hand because they can't stop themselves. I mean, they are so self-indulgent and they're so addicted to pleasure that they put aside any kind of moral or conduct restraints, and they always, in the end, always overreach. They always sabotage their own success. People like this always end up probably in prison or ostracized from any group or family. They end up finally with having no friends, and nobody loves them. Nobody wants to be around them because over the process, they have taken advantage and abused everybody in their pathway. And so he says you have to understand that, again, without self-control, there's no limits to how far they'll go to achieve their goals. And if they aren't getting what they want, they will double down, and they'll continue to double down, and they'll do it ruthlessly, they'll do it relentlessly. And that's why these people are so incredibly exhausting, which also leads them to number 13 in the list, which is they're also brutal. And that, in other words, because they can't feel other people's pain, they have no empathy, they never respond to situations in any kind of what we call any kind of proportionality. They always go to the extreme, and that's why the word that's used here in the original means they're fierce, they're savage, and what they do is they do it to control other people by intimidation, by threats, and even use physical abuse. And that's where you find that physical abuse in a relationship is, let me put it this way. If you're in a relationship where you're being abused by the other person, don't believe their apologies. Don't believe that they'll never do it again like they promise. Don't give them a second chance. Don't let them back in the door. Don't let them have access to you, because they'll be good for a while, but sooner or later, they're not going to be able to control it. They have no self-control, and that brutality will express itself, and their savagery and their fierceness will come out, and it'll catch you off guard, and every time it gets worse. Sadly, over the years, I've had the obligation, the responsibility, in a way, the trust and the honor to work with particularly women who have been in abusive relationships. And I hate to say it, I've never known one where the abuse stops because the abuser has decided to stop. It always escalates. It always gets worse. It always goes higher and higher. They always apologize. They always say they'll never do it again. But they will do it again, because they never really honestly address what's going on the inside. Because these people are very narcissistic in their personality. They're very self-absorbed. And narcissism is one of those things that gets worse as you become more and more narcissistic, because for the most part, to the narcissist, their ways of doing things works for them. They tend to maintain control. They tend to win. They tend to enrich themselves. They tend to get the promotion. They tend to go to the top of the corporation. I mean, and so as a result, for people who are their victims, you look back and say, doesn't this person ever lose? Yet in a relationship, particularly a marriage where abuse is going on, and don't think it's just limited to marriage. If they say, I'll marry you, don't think that the abuse is going to stop either. They'll continue to abuse you because that is their drug of choice. That's what gives them a sense of control and safety. That's what makes them feel good. That's what enables them, believe it or not, that's what enables them to put their head in the pillow and sleep at night. And most people who aren't like that get kind of confused by that, because we can't believe that anybody could be that brutal, that ruthless, that harmful. But that's the whole point, is that they don't think like other people. And it takes a long time for most people to realize their brain does not operate like your brain does. They have no moral boundaries. They have no limits. Again, they have no self-control over anything. They do what they believe they need to do. And for them, for you to resist them is like standing on their air hose and cutting off their oxygen supply. And they will, if you've ever seen a person drowning, you realize they can think about only one thing, and that's their own survival. And that's how these people act. It's not rational. It's not reasonable. And you can't even reason with them. But I can tell you that you can move out of their reach and get away from them, because it's the only way that you can keep them from hurting you, because they control by intimidation and abuse and brutality. Which brings me last of all to number 14 in our list, which is that basically they're not lovers of good. It's hard, again, for us, because most people think they're good, but you have to understand what they've done is they've inverted good and evil. They're the person Isaiah said in Isaiah 5, they call good evil, and they call evil good. They put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. They see everything differently. And so when we try to understand Eichmann, when he was Adolf Eichmann, when he was sentenced to death for his part in the genocide, to be hung, the only person in Israel they ever executed, and by hanging. And as he was awaiting his execution, his comment was, "One day you will thank the Nazis for what we have done," because he so believed that killing Jews was in the best interest of humanity. And we look at that and saying, when is killing another person in the best interest of humanity? I mean, we should be thinking that to take a person's life, even under judicial and legal systems where the state is executing a criminal, is a thing that we want to avoid at every chance. And yet to them, this was a good thing. And that's what you have to understand. These people are hostile to virtue. Then, in fact, they see it as weakness, and they despise people that try to be good. They'll call in those stupid do-gooders and those Christian legalists and all this kind of stuff, because they themselves are so dark, they believe that darkness is good. They believe that good people are a source of contradicting their narrative, and so they come against the good. So If someone is praised for doing good, they'll try to imitate it and pretend like they're good until they get control and they get attention. And then they'll drop doing the good and they'll begin to prey upon the things that people are doing. For example, when you hear in the news about somebody who's running a nonprofit organization that's doing good things, and then it comes out that they've been stealing money. Well, the reason they did is because they're not lovers of good, they're narcissists. And they saw the monies that were coming in, positioned themselves to be the one who controlled that, and then they began to steal it to feed their own self because all they can care about is their own personal enrichment. Well, we've covered a lot today. Tomorrow, we'll continue on. I'm hoping that by Friday we can get to the end of the list because we're now on number 15, that these people are treacherous. I hope you're hanging with me. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.